So thank you all so much for coming out here today to the Plant Sciences Building, home of the Plant Sciences Initiative. And really happy to have you here for our next mashup session. So mashups, if you haven't been to one before, it's our seminar series with the whole intent of bringing together folks from industry and from NC State University to have a discussion around a particular topic and then to network. So I always like to start off and see who in the room is representing coming from outside of NC State industry folks. Raise your hand. Awesome. And so raise your hand if you're from NC State. Yep. So so far, it's been a pretty good 50-50 mix of folks coming from academia and from industry in these events. So very excited to have that mixture. And so after the seminar, we'll have a networking mixer out in the lobby. So you can continue to have discussions and catch up with old people and meet some new folks. So today's mashup session, our topic is ag formulations, and we have some great speakers. So we have two speakers from New Farm, Grant Aldridge and Tony Aldridge, and then we also have two speakers from NC State, Terry Billson and Jim Martin. So before we get started, I do want to give thanks to Casimir Jones for providing support for this event. So I would like to invite on up Lisa Miller with Casimir Jones just to say a few words before we get started.
Well, thanks, Kathleen, and good afternoon, everyone. As she mentioned, I'm Lisa Mueller from Casimir Jones. We're a very small life sciences IP boutique based in Madison, Wisconsin. But we also have an office in Durham, as well as some space up in the Innovation Hub. So I'm here usually a couple times a month, and we work with the Office of Commercialization here at NC State, as well as a lot of startups, a lot of larger seed companies. So whenever we're here, feel free to stop by and say hi. My practice is pharmaceuticals, food products, and plants. In addition, next month on the 7th, if you have any IP or trademark related questions as it pertains to plants, we're going to have a lunch and learn with the Office of Commercialization here. And we're going to talk everything IP related as it relates to ag and plants. So feel free to stop by, and also we'll be here on the 20th of this month, and then next month on the 4th and 7th. So feel free to stop by on the 3rd floor. Happy to answer any questions, and thanks again, Kathleen.
Thank you so much, Lisa. All right. So next I want to give thanks to the companies that we have as members of our Innovation Hub. So the whole point of Mashup, we like to give an opportunity for our different industry partners who are members of the Innovation Hub to have the stage and be able to give a presentation to the local ag tech community on a particular topic. So we do have now 18 companies that have joined our Innovation Hub. And so if you're not aware of what that is, up on the 3rd floor of this building, it's a space, it looks like an open office area with some huddle rooms. And so any of these companies, the employees can come work from that space. So if you're interested and your company is not a member of the Innovation Hub, please come talk to me. I'm happy to give you more information about that. But thank you so much to the current members of the Innovation Hub. So for this particular mashup, our spotlight member of the Innovation Hub is New Farm. And so we'll be having talks from New Farm in just a second. I do though, and maybe you want to get your phones out, I do want to mention a couple of other upcoming events that you might want to come and participate in. So the first one, super excited about this one. So I'm myself putting this together. We have a program here at the PSI called Seed to Grow. And Seed to Grow is our program to support ag tech entrepreneurs at the university. So, this can be students or faculty, or in some way having a tie to the university. So we have this program now, Seed to Grow, that supports startup companies with an affiliation with NC State with launching their company and getting through the early valley of death of startup companies. So we're holding for our first time ever a Seed to Grow showcase and pitch competition. So this pitch competition is going to be held on November 11th. I'm going to be advertising very soon across the whole entire university, all of the colleges, and inviting students, faculty, research scholars, postdocs If they have a particular technology that they are working on commercializing, in particular through a startup, then they're welcome to apply to potentially be able to pitch. And we'll narrow it down. We're going to have two tracks. One track's going to be for students, the other track is for basically full-time employees that are not students. So that's the postdocs, the faculty, research scholars. And there are going to be financial prizes for both those tracks. So on November 11th will be the actual pitch competition. We're going to narrow it down to 6 participants for each of those two tracks. They're going to pitch, and then we'll award prizes. So hope you'll be able to attend that event. Another one to put on your calendars for November 19th. So this is through the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. They have twice a year usually an emerging research showcase where they bring faculty in a particular topic to give talks about their technologies they're working on. The topic's going to be on AI and precision livestock farming. And so here's the RCP link for that. And you can contact my colleague, Deborah Thompson, if you'd like more information, or you can contact me and I'll get you in contact with Deborah. All right, so I would like to first invite on up our new farm speakers. I don't know who's going to start.
You first.
Awesome. And all right, she's got it. Being switched over.
Very good. Well, thank you for having us here. My name is Grant Aldridge. I lead New Farms Business Development and Third-Party Alliances for North America. And thank you, Kathleen, and to the NCPSI group for the mashup today. It's an honor to be here and appreciate what we're going to share. So I'm going to start with evolving ag and agricultural innovation at New Farm. So as we know, agriculture is evolving and the mega trends driving the biggest challenges as well as the biggest opportunities in agriculture. And so over the past decade, we've seen significant changes that have disrupted traditional research development models, as well as offering solutions beyond what agriculture has traditionally served. So what that means is agriculture and innovation is becoming rapidly democratized, and it makes it more accessible and cost-effective for companies like New Farm. Additionally, innovation is extending beyond products to the development of new solutions for our customers. So the world needs more food, feed, fiber, and fuel. And so the markets and the customers' needs are constantly changing and evolving. When we look at global nutrition, we have a growing population that has a strong demand for food, not just in terms of volume, but also the quantity, but the nutrient density. And I was looking out kind of in your foyer there, is in 2050, we'll have an additional 2 billion people, so a lot of mouths to feed. From land productivity, there's no new land that we can create, so we have to be much more efficient with that land, which means innovation and increasing our yields. For sustainable practices, we know that water is a limiting factor. We have to have better water utilization. We have to decarbonize our production systems. And a lot of that's going to center around soil health and those ecosystems. And again, innovation has to go into that as well. And then lastly, just the rise in sustainable crops. And crops have opportunities for new markets. And so I'll talk a little bit how New Farm is working within that segment with our plant-grown type crops for fuel as well as omega-3. So New Farm is well positioned to meet these challenges. So with our proven agility, our agri-science capabilities, our strong partnerships, we're helping our customers meet this crucial need for sustainable feed, food, fiber, and fuel. So as agriculture evolves, so does New Farm. So to drive value for our customers, our research partners, our shareholders, as well as our people, we're evolving our branding under a unified purpose, evolving ag. This solution and evolution includes a refreshed logo, which we recently did this year, across our crop protection and our seeds platforms. It reflects the breadth of our offerings as well as deepens our brand equity. New Farm is a 109-year-old company, so that brand has a lot of reputation. Started in Australia, so we're very proud of the New Farm name and that rebranding centered around our new tagline called Evolving Ag. So a bit about New Farm. We're a global agricultural innovator with a geographic and product diversification and a solid foundation that we build upon with significant growth aspirations. So New Farm participates in two key segments, crop protection as well as seed technologies. We're across several regions in Asia Pacific, North America, as well as Europe, and then our global seed technologies is a part of that. And North America is the largest of our regions at 38%. So our key product segments are herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides, where herbicides is the largest segment for New Farm. We're basic in phenoxy's chemistry with 2,4-D and MCPA and some others. And then we're growing our portfolio and filling gaps within fungicides and insecticides. Our seed technologies, we have high-performing hybrid seeds in canola, sorghum, and sunflower, as well as proprietary products around nutritional products as well as biofuel products. So the New Farm difference is really threefold: partnering for growth, innovation, and technology. New Farm has a little over 3,000 people, 11 manufacturing sites globally, as well as 9 innovation and R&D centers, one of which R&D center is located here in RTP. From a revenue standpoint, we're at $3.3 billion and EBITDA at $313 million. So New Farm's global footprint serves our customers. And in North America, we have manufacturing assets in Chicago land area, and also where we also have our regional headquarters in Chicago Heights, and then a new facility that we built in Greenville, Mississippi. And then our regional headquarters for our seed technologies in Sacramento, as well as an innovation center there. New Farm is headquartered out of Melbourne, Australia, where we have manufacturing assets as well as innovation. So very much a global footprint within our company. So where does New Farm play? We're focused on crops, markets, and segments where we feel we can be most successful. I mentioned the regional aspect, but I did want to highlight that we are moving back into South America, beginning in Brazil. And I mentioned the crops already, but I did want to highlight where our crop protection focus is in cereals, corn, soybeans, tree nuts, tree fruits, vines, and vegetables, as well as our range and pasture, our industrial vegetation management, and T&O, where we have a strong leadership position. Our 7 growth platforms include our hybrid seeds, our nutritionals, as well as our bioenergy, on crop protection, biologics, as well as emerging solutions. And where we have the opportunity to integrate these, we do bringing all these together. And so that innovation and technology partnership levers a unique set of capabilities, including chemistry production, seeds, digital sciences, as well as our partnerships and our alliances. So I mentioned Carinata and canola, and these support our value beyond yield, and that's around delivering plant-based solutions. So from an input trait side, and our sorghum and our sunflower is really around grower and agronomic traits. Our output traits are end user or consumer-based traits, and again, canola and Carinata, and we do some in energy cane. So from the nutritionals, our plant-based omega-3 for Carinata is a vertical integration of this technology where we have the seed, we contract the grower to produce it, and then we work it through the value chain to have an output, and it's branded with a feed and Aquaterra for fish oil, as well as Nutriterra, which is feed and food. On the bioenergy side, as I mentioned, Carinata goes into sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, and we're recognized as having an enablement of greenhouse gas reductions, as well as a feedstock that provides carbon offsetting. So our technology platform, I'll focus mainly on the value proposition of a relevant portfolio. Nufarm foundational solutions are around our core chemistries, both from a legacy standpoint, but we've been a leader in this space, particularly with phenoxy chemistries. We have significant manufacturing assets and capabilities and resources around that, and it really creates true value to the grower of those solutions. But we can't stay there. We have to innovate, and so we have significant energies around developing new innovative solutions. So these are new chemistries. These are accessing things upstream, if you will, or being close to patent fall. We're also making investments in biologic solutions. This brings in new modes of action to combine it with softer chemistries, and it also solves agronomic challenges that we may have. One example is an asset that we acquired called Trinemco, which is a seed application technology for nematode control. And so it's an important platform for our crops and soybeans and other crops. And from an emerging solution standpoint, it allows us to bring in disruptive types of technology and create new income streams for the company and our partners. And then lastly, when these come together in a convergence to have an integrated solution, we will. A good example would be Carinata, bringing an agronomic program into that cropping system. So Nufarm has an open source approach to innovation. We maximize our pipeline through two critical practices. First is around development. Our global approach is to maximize our R&D investment, and in this climate, that's very important. Our formulation development is a significant and differentiating strength at Nufarm, and Tony will touch on that here shortly. So we make foundations better, and we also strive to be first in on off-patent molecules. And then as we continue this through our product advancement process with field trialing and bringing in our tech service team to provide the right kind of recommendations to our customers. And then our partnership is really amplifying our abilities and to conserve our R&D resources. And we do that through the partnership of R&D and technology-based companies with universities, and I'll talk about that shortly. It also allows us to create more value, to be more capital efficient with our resources, and to speed up innovation and time to commercialization and market. Partners seek Nufarm out because we have a number of expertise in regulatory and formulation development, as well as our global market access. And the net result is a maximum return on our portfolio investment. So Nufarm's commitment to agricultural innovation is kind of a problem solution. So with fundamental chemistry, there's challenges, regulatory pressure, low margins, limited ability to solve problems that come about, new issues arise, but also the decreased efficacy of resistance. So the solution is developing new innovative ways to combat these. So design new and future problems that growers may have, designed to meet new sustainable criteria that we know is occurring, delivering higher margins and a healthy business to our company, but also those that participate in the value chain. And then cover this, as you mentioned, with good IP, right? So I want to give a near-term example that we have called Weedar XHL. Weedar XHL is a 2,4-D. It's been around since the mid-1940s. What in the world can you and how can you innovate around 2,4-D? Well, Nufarm did. Our scientists innovated 2,4-D with a patented dual salt technology. It brings new potential not only as a solo solution, but also in premixtures. And this is a combination of proprietary products of MMA and DMA 2,4-D salts. It allows us to have a higher load within that formulation, that allows us and allows our customers to put on 37% more treated acres, which is very significant in this climate to be that efficient. So we have several value propositions and features and benefits from flexibility. It allows us to use less gallons. A gallon will go further, longer shelf life, particularly in cold climates, as well as a formulation that has introduced low odor, which is important, particularly with markets like TNO that gets concerning for consumers a lot of times. The second is around ease of use. It allows us to reduce the amount of product that goes out. We also have fewer containers to rinse, and that leads into the sustainability story that we have. Fewer jugs to clean, less packaging to dispose of, and an overall use rate that makes it very efficient. I will add, in this project, as we were developing this and registering this product, we had a significant partnership with NC State, with Dr. Travis Gannon. In our regulatory package, we needed to look at volatility of a new dual salt technology. And so we worked with him on his humidome studies to induce volatilization. So we had a very strong partnership with him and value that a lot. And we also work with other universities. So this wasn't just inside the walls of New Farm. We had a lot of interaction with various stakeholders and partners. So it's important taking an older molecule, but what about the future? So one of the movements that New Farm is making is upstream towards discovery. New Farm will not be a discovery shop, but we will partner with discovery companies, small molecule companies, as well as microbial companies. And that's important because that is a source for feeding our pipeline of new product candidates, feeds our pre-development process. Typically, historically, New Farm would take kind of development onward, but now we're going upstream to work with these partners, and I'll show a few in a moment. So here's an example. New Farm is a trusted innovation partner. New Farm made equity investments in a small molecule company called Inco. They've got an amazing platform for rapid discovery of molecules and understanding the potential regulatory path. A recent announcement with Pharmanon for sourcing a molecule with them. We've got various university collaborations and a very long-standing relationship with CSIRO in Australia. We've done a lot with Sumitomo Chemical for a number of years. They used to be an owner, a portion of ownership of New Farm. And then lastly, CropZone, and I'll talk about them in the next slide. So New Crop is a very interesting technology that New Farm has made an equity investment in, and it's basically using equipment application technology and electrification using electrical conductive fluid to control weeds, particularly in an organic setting, but also in plant desiccation, potato desiccation, or other type crops. So it's a very innovative technology, and it really lends itself, when Tony gets into her portion, about how important formulations is to being interoperable with this equipment application technology. And I'll finish up here. Our knowledge of application technology is unique to the crop protection industry. I imagine most of you are not aware that New Farm actually has an equipment application technology company. We've had it for many, many years, called Croplands. It's based in Australia. So it really allows us to look at the spray and seed technology, autonomous spraying with our investment in Robotics Plus, and then our recent investment in Kilter Systems, which is precision application technology and autonomous spraying. So these are crop protection is not just a product, it is a solution that we offer to the grower. So the takeaway from this is really to hand it over to Tony, is it's going to be so important with these applications is the formulations have got to really map out very clearly with these new technologies. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tony.
Hello, I am Tony Aldridge, and I am the formulation manager of North America for New Farm. And I am going to talk about formulation development today. And so what is it? How do we do it? And I'm hoping by the end of my talk today that I'm going to dispel some of the myth of the art of formulating. So when we look at formulating in the chemical industry, it's the concept of taking ingredients of interest, combining them with other components in a specific concentration, in a specific way, so that you end up with a formulation or in a product that your customer wants and or needs. And formulating is in a lot of things that we come in contact with every day. So from your personal care, your soaps, your shampoos, all your pharmaceuticals are formulated, your cleaning solutions, you've got paints and coatings, and of course, you've got agriculture. Now, the complexity and rigor that's required of agricultural formulations can actually make it very difficult to formulate. Our industry is very regulated, and those regulations change from one country to the next country, and we have to work within those requirements as we formulate. A lot of our products will also see extreme weather conditions. We will make products that get shipped down to Arizona, and they will get stored in a warehouse that's not climate controlled for the whole summer and then get used. We'll also make formulations in Chicago. We'll then ship them to Canada in the middle of winter and to Calgary. And every so often, they'll get unloaded onto the loading dock and get to sit there over the weekend when it's minus 35 degrees because nobody was around. And we've got to know what our products are going to do when they see those kind of environments. Our products are also often combined with a lot of other formulations in the tank. Also liquid fertilizers, sometimes water conditioners, all that will go into the spray tank together when it gets ready for application time. So again, we got to know what are we compatible with, how's it going to work when they put us all together in that same tank at that time. And then with the broad space of application methods, we're making formulations that in some cases are going to be put out with 100 to 200 gallons per acre of carrier. We have other applications where it's going to be 10 to 20 gallons per acre. Then when we go to aerial applications, we're going down to about 5 to 7 gallons of carrier per acre. And with the new drone technology, we're getting pushed to make formulations that will be able to go out with concept of as low as 3 gallons an acre. And our products got to go in there, mix homogeneously, and spray and pull off what it's supposed to do. So those are some of the complications that we do as formulation technologists. What I'd like to do is to talk a little bit about how do we do this. And I'm going to go through an example of an emulsifiable concentrate first, which is one of our types of formulations that is not one of the more complicated types. So we're going to start a little bit on the more simple side. Now, the 2,4-D wheat RXHL that Grant talked about is based on our 2,4-D salt. Again, it's solid, active ingredient. We react it into the salt forms, and then it's very soluble in water. It will make an SL formulation. Another one of our foundational molecules is 2,4-D esters. And 2,4-D 2-ethylhexyl ester, or 2EH as we refer to it, is a liquid as an active ingredient. And you can see that in the beaker there. It's a liquid ingredient. And so it might be easy to think, well, then that should just go straight into water. Why do you need a formulator? You just pour it in there. It's an organic compound. So you can imagine as soon as you put an organic into a water tank, you're going to get separation. And because our technical is more dense than water, it's going straight to the bottom. So we got to find some help. First thing we're going to have to do is find a solvent that we can work in. So we're going to screen solvents to find an EPA-approved solvent that will allow us to get at the concentration that we have to do to make our formulation. After we do all the screening to find that solvent, that's not going to be enough, because if we take that diluted active, stick it back into water, you can get that same phase separation and it crashes. So now we've got to find some additional help in the form of a surfactant. And that again is that molecule that has a water-loving head, hydrophobic tail that will like our active ingredient, and we'll put that combination in there. We're going to screen a lot of those to find that form, that surfactant or surfactant combination that can work as an emulsifier in that package. Once we screen all of those, build that formulation, and put it into water now, we were able to make a formulation that builds a homogeneous solution for the farmer to put in the tank. So basically, through formulations, we've been able to take an active ingredient, that's pretty much not usable by our customer and make it into a product that's easy to handle, very robust, and does exactly what we claim it's going to do. So there's a lot of different types of formulations that we can make. And that depends on our customers' needs as well as what our active ingredients can do. So when our portfolio solution team comes in to talk to us about what they like, very seldom in agriculture anymore are we lucky enough to get to make solo formulations, especially in the herbicide area. We're going to make formulations that have 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 active ingredients in them. And then our customer is going to typically want a liquid formulation and typically a water-based formulation. And we've got to look at the physical characteristics of our active ingredient to turn out, figure out if we can do that. Is it a solid? Is it a liquid? What's the melting point? And what's it soluble in? So if we take tebuconazole as an example, which is the molecule you see up in the corner. Tebuconazole is a fungicide that's in a lot of New Farm's portfolio, predominantly in our seed treatment group. It is a solid active ingredient with a melting point of about 212 degrees. Okay, and it's also soluble in organic salts. So that means it's actually a good candidate for making dry formulations. And there are tebuconazole WDGs out there in the market. It's also soluble in organic, as I said, so you can make an EC out of it, just like the example that we talked through. However, it's also got one more great characteristic, and that's that it's very insoluble in water. It's about 0.04 grams per liter soluble in water. So that makes it an excellent candidate for making a suspension concentrate. So now, if we look at developing a suspension concentrate, or a flowable as they're sometimes known as, one of the first criteria is that our active ingredient has to be relatively insoluble in water. So if we take tebuconazole and we put it in water, you get the first picture. It's going to do exactly what you think. It's going to float right there on top of the water. That's going to be the first challenge we've got to work through. Because remember, the product is that we're going to suspend the active ingredient into the water phase. And so basically the first thing we're going to do is find a surfactant that has a hydrophobic tail on it that will interact with our active ingredient. So now when we put the tebuconazole on the surface, the surfactant is going to reach up and grab that active and pull it into solution. We still have another problem though now. The tebuconazole still doesn't really want to be in the water. It kind of got tricked into going there. So it's going to find every other AI that's in that product, the rest of the tebuconazole, and stick together. And we got to overcome that problem. So we're going to do that by finding a surfactant that acts as a dispersing agent. And dispersing agents are usually large surfactant molecules, polymeric molecules that can actually work with our active ingredient by wrapping around it, and either by steric hindrance or electrostatic repulsion, they will actually keep those molecules apart. So now we've got our active in solution. It's actually got surfactants around it that are making it a little heavier, but we've got to deal with particle size. When particle sizes are large, they're basically going to be a problem for us. And that when we synthesize our active ingredients, they tend to be quite large in size. So we're going to mill them down to a particle size, because if we don't, hard to keep them suspended. They'll also plug your streams. And we've also seen that biologically, your particle size is very important for how well your active ingredient works. So we're going to mill that down to size. So now we're actually in a better position. We're in the right size. We've got surfactants in there. Problem is, our active is still heavier than water. So gravity eventually will take over and it will go to the bottom. It's going to hard pack on us. And we've got to avoid that. So we're going to use something that will change the viscosity and change the nature of the water. So we use a rheological modifier or a thickener to do this. That's a lot of times the xanthan gum. So it basically just thickens it up. But now because we're in water, we can have microbes. And microbes love to eat xanthan gum. So got two problems. One, as they eat the gum, they give off gas and your tanks tend to bloat. And two, it's eating the suspending aid that we just put in there. So we've got to be sure and find the right biocide to keep that from happening and know the right concentration that we've got to use. You'll also notice that every time I say we need some help, I keep talking about surfactants. which are soaps. So the concept that we will be making foam is very likely when we're trying to pack off, when we're transferring, when it's in the farmer's tank. There's two problems with that. One, it's incredibly annoying. And two, surfactants, when they foam like that, can actually strip other surfactants off your active ingredients. So now it would actually remove the surfactants that are around our active ingredients, trying to keep them happy in solution. And so we need to find the right antifoam that will either keep that foam from happening or be sure that it dissipates really quickly when it does. Now, lastly, we're in water, and we all know what happens at 32 degrees, so we got to identify basically an antifreeze and how much we need to add into the formulation. And we can at times want to add an adjuvant, which is simply an extra molecule that goes into there to help our product work better. Could be in the case you might want to wet it out on the leaf a little better, help it penetrate through the leaf surface a little better. And so all of that goes together to make the type of formulation that we need to make. So when we formulate at Nufarm, we go through an extensive protocol and testing protocol to develop the formulations that we need to make. We're going to go through basically making prototypes, testing them, putting them on storage stability, finding out if they work. If they don't, we get to go back and start over and do the process again. Once we find that first part, and the 2-week testing basically tells us, and 2-week 54 tells us if it's likely to make a 2-year shelf life stability chemical. And so that's where we do our first initial testing. If we don't pass that, starting over. If we do, then we're going to put it to full storage. We're going to test it at basically 54 cold, 8 weeks at 40. And then we do a cyclical thing. If we're sending our products up to Canada, we will test at -30 degrees because we've got to know what they're going to do. When we go through all this cycling, and as you can imagine, multiple prototypes that we go through to find a robust formulation. When we finally get there, we'll then go into biology testing and then move into registration. So at Nufarm, we do go to great lengths to produce robust formulations to ensure that our customers have the best experience possible when they choose to use our formulations. And so I hope today, as I've talked, you've gotten a taste for the scientific approach that's necessary to build robust, efficacious formulations in agriculture. And I also hope that it will help you appreciate the initiative that our next speaker are going to share with us today.
Thank you so much to both our speakers. We have time for maybe 2 or so questions. Any questions from the audience? Adrian.
Question for Tony. Thank you both. I had a question. Can you just kind of run us through the general differences of approach for a biological-based formulation versus a chemical? And I'm just curious where you use the inspiration for biological formulations. Does it come from the crop protection chemistry side, or are you looking to different industries like the food industry and other sectors that might be working with biologicals?
I'm going to say for us, and this would be what Grant actually is the strategy for the North American biologicals here. We are looking towards our partners that are developing these. But as we develop biological formulations, we are looking towards other partners that are doing this, that are developing that strategy to help us learn how we're developing them. I do think the biological part of agriculture will pull on a lot of what we've learned from regular synthetic. A lot of our surfactant suppliers are testing their ingredients to see how they work, if they hurt the microbes, if they if they work when they go in there. So we're developing a lot of techniques and a lot of understanding of how to formulate biologics. I think when we can stay in the gram-positive region and things like that, it's a whole lot easier. When we move into the gram-negatives, I want to say it's a brave new world. And it seems like we have a lot of people who are finding really good gram-negatives that they're looking at trying to formulate. So I don't know that that really answered the question, but I think we're going to have to look at a lot of different industries to see how, what's working in different places and what pieces we can pull out of those industries. I don't think anybody has the answer sitting out there yet. Do you want to add to that?
Well, thank you so much. For the sake of time, we're gonna move on to our next speakers, but definitely hope if you do have questions, please find both Tony and Grant during the mixer. So our next speakers, I'm gonna invite up Terry Billison and Jim Martin. So I hope that Tony convinced you that formulations is not simple, it is quite complicated. And so now we're gonna talk about how potentially NC State can help out with bringing new talent for formulations to industry.
Okay, I think we'll start with introductions, Kathleen, that was so well said, because Jim and I have certainly found out how complicated it is, especially to teach new scientists this entire process. So to start, I'm Terry Billison. I am a turfgrass entomologist in the Department of Entomology and Plant Pathology. And in addition to this course, I am also teaching a pesticides and their utilization course on campus.
And I'm Jim Martin. I'm a chemistry professor here in the department. I started as an inorganic chemist. I've turned into sort of a physical chemist, and in the process have developed some formulations on my own, collaborate with a number of people doing formulations, and jumping into this. What a great introduction. And the challenges, we will also describe, how do you bridge these fields? Because too many chemists make one molecule, have no idea how to put it into a usable form. How do we bridge that with the entomologists and the farmers? And that's what we're trying to do in this class, a bold experiment.
Yes. And while we're getting the slides figured out, it's all right. I also have a part-time extension appointment, so I can talk without a single slide. For better or for worse. And Tony, those slides were so wonderful. We literally create or try to emulate something similar in our class, and we're trying to talk about the different components of different formulation types. So yeah, the segue was perfect. So I think I'm going to start with a little kind of background to where this all came from. We'll talk about the course that we have co-created, and then what our vision is for the future. And so this all came about as before either one of us came on board, with kind of an industry brainstorming session in the fall of 2024. And it was, as I understand it, a large group of both people representing NC State and industry partners, looking at what are some of the needs, what are some of the skills that our graduating students can bring to the industry, what's currently lacking. And the idea centered around background in agricultural formulations. And that is a very general term to describe an entire spectrum. That's why there are two of us up here representing kind of the opposite ends of that spectrum. We've got your fundamental science when you're talking about the very early stages of product development, and then going through the refining of the formulation process, the testing, thinking about regulatory issues. And then on my side, looking at very applied situations where these formulations are being used. And so the concept was to create a certificate program, a graduate certificate program that undergraduates, graduate students, and also professionals could take that would help inform students of all different backgrounds more about that entire product development process. So giving people with an applied science background more of the chemistry, and chemistry students that we're recruiting into the class an idea of where these products go after that initial development process, as Jim kind of alluded to earlier. So the general vision of this was to create NC State as a central hub for training and research of agricultural formulations technology, starting off with one introductory course, and then, as I said, growing it into a larger certificate program that has different channels that different students of different backgrounds can then explore from there. All right, and with that, pass it over to Jim.
Okay, well, this idea of a course was pitched at sort of the starting foundation. How do you get people involved? Actually, do I need to be in front of the mic? Are we recording?
Oh, we're recording.
I'm a mover.
That's okay. And you're also, I think your voice is carrying.
It's big enough. Well, I'll go ahead and use this mic. I'm a mover. I'm not a stander behind a podium kind of guy. So the idea is, how do we bridge these worlds? We have all become very siloed. And chemists are chemists, and applied folks are applied. Very few chemists have ever been out in a field, seen a sprayer. and, I'll make my little, a couple grams of material on a bench. Oh, you want me to make tons of it? More than two completely different worlds. How do we bring these ideas together? And so this was the idea of trying to create this agricultural formulations. We got to start with a course. Our goal is to maybe move to a lab and then quite a number of other things. So, our goal is to help students understand, first of all, what formulations are, specifically with the focus on ag. Again, Tony and Grant, great slides. We try to cover a range of topics. We took that brainstorming list that we got from the industry consortium, and I will admit, you look at that list of everything that needs to be covered and you say, oh my gosh, how do we do this in a class? It's intense. Trying to really be broad, right? We don't want to niche only covering one area. How do we bring this kind of thing together? And again, our goal is to try to help students become better employees for you, and also even work with some of your employees to get into this crazy mix of how do we bring the applied and the fundamental into one space. Well, as we thought about this and we got that list of the many things that industry folks said we'd love to have put into a course, I'm an educator that does a lot with curriculum development as well as the research that I do. And I look at this and it reminded me of work that I do with K-12 high school teachers, particularly chemistry teachers, for whom the chemistry curriculum is 27 pages of topics. And so you end up just covering pop, 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 and nobody gets the connection. So working with high school teachers, I sat down with them and we tried to distill what is it that we need to learn. And this developed the idea of what I call a web of study. A draft of our web of study for the agricultural formulations you see here in the upper right. Now, the idea is, a spider web is made up of, or can be described as, a single strand of silk. And if I take that single strand and just run it out in a line, I'm not going to catch many bugs. But if I integrate that together in a web, that same strand of silk, I'm going to catch a lot of bugs. So the idea is, how do we distill, what are the core things we need to think about? And then what are all those kinds of interrelationships? So taking that long list of materials that we were given, it really seemed that everything could really be kind of distilled down into three core areas. I mean, you first have to know your product, right? What is it that you're working with, right? That's your active. We're assuming that that exists. Now, what are we going to do with it? We're going to need to understand its chemical properties. We're going to need to understand its manufacture and application. And we're going to need to understand analytical testing for any variety of reasons. Those seem to be the core principles that captured all of the topics on that list. But now as and by the way, you might recognize that those I've drawn as the three primary colors, right? So yeah, I need to know the fundamental chemical principles, but if I'm going to understand the application, the product form and delivery, I'm going to need to understand how to make it, how to scale it up, right? And that's going to be a combination of understanding manufacture and the fundamental principles. Hence, it's in between those two and purple. But if I'm going to actually understand the efficacy in the field, I might have made my great formulation that if the farmers would only use the instructions as we've instructed them to do, it would work perfectly. But what happens all the time? I take this compound and mix it into the tank. You heard everything that went into that nice emulsion concentrate or suspension. If you tweak that just wrong, all that hard work literally crashes out, right? So we're back to the fundamental chemistry, right? I need to understand that if I've got one set of salts that is highly soluble and another set of salts that is highly insoluble, and I mix them together, guess what's going to happen? Right? Glyphosate is a phenomenal example that I've learned about while teaching this course. Did you know that the sodium salt of glyphosate is nearly insoluble, but the potassium salt is highly soluble? what's the difference between potassium and sodium? It's a chemistry question. It's actually sodium has 2 hydration shells and potassium only has 1. And that changes how its elbow room it takes up in water. Right? So this is where do we have to? We can do a lot of trial and error. But the more we're informed about the chemical principles, we're going to understand more about product delivery, product efficacy. Oh, and we better measure it, right? Because maybe I wanted that material that was highly soluble because that will go into my sprayer very nicely. But if I'm highly soluble, that means I get into the water supply. What do I want to do, right? Here's where I'm going to need to understand my measurement techniques and my analytical testing. So what you see is all of these ideas have this web where one part informs the other, and this is where we need scientists who are multidisciplinary thinkers who can work together in teams, who are willing to go into the lab and willing to go out into the field, who will listen to the farmer that says, hey, I want to mix stuff, and I'm sorry, I can't always make it so that it's possible. So sometimes you do need to follow the instructions, but sometimes we can figure out combinations if we understand the chemistry to make everything effectively work, right? And so that's a big task. And I will tell you, as a chemist, I look at most formulations and my first response is to tuck my tail between my legs and run, right? Because it's ridiculously complex. Give me 2 components. Not 50, because they're all going to interact with each other. But no, we've got to take the real systems, dissect it, and begin to see if we can make sense out of how things go together so that it works in the field, so that it works for the applicator, so that it is safe to the applicator and to the environment. That's our challenge. Now, we put this web together, which I still think is a pretty cool idea. We've got a more detailed one with lots more details to it, but this gives you the big picture. But Terry said, okay, I'm getting this web idea, but we sort of, particularly for a course, we can't do everything all at once, right? We can't just be scattered. And so this is the idea that we came up with of a spiral workflow. And this is what we're trying to do in the course. Like I say, the course is experimental. We're literally building it as we fly the plane. But we start, as many formulations folks have told us, you got to understand your product, right? That's going to focus more on your fundamental chemistry. And so we're going to look around our chemical properties manufacture testing as we understand our product. Then all good education isn't just take it once, right? I'm going to pass over it and over it and over again. I'm going to come back to some of the ideas and I'm going to build as I spiral up. So our second loop of the spiral is really going to try to focus on how does the product function? How is it going to be produced? How is it going to be applied? Right? So we start a little bit more local and start work our way out. And our third loop around the spiral, we're really trying to say, okay, what is the field efficacy? What's the implementation? Here's where we're also going to deal with regulatory issues, and environmental safety kind of issues. So this is the pictorial idea of what we're trying to do in the course. And we try to remind people that foundational to that web is always cost, because I might have the greatest product in the world, but if you require me to buy all new equipment, ain't going to be used, right? So we have to understand our cost. We have to understand our safety. Those are underlying features to all principles of any good formulation. That's the idea. What does it look like in practice? In part logical, in part chaos. So day one, to try to begin to introduce students to the idea, we gave them a task. Create a formulation. We gave them glitter and we gave them some plastic beads. And their task was to create a formulation that would suspend those in water using a handful of household ingredients. They could use salt, going to change the density. They could use sugar, going to change the viscosity. They could use vinegar and baking soda, acid and base. Didn't do anything for these things, but does for others. And they could use dish soap, which is our surfactant. And by messing around, yes, you can get both suspended. Now, we couldn't make beautiful suspensions, partly a particle size issue, right? But the point is the students could begin to mess with that formulation process. And then the goal is to, okay, if we understand the properties of each of these additives, we begin to understand what we need to do in terms of a formulation. So that was sort of step one. Pass it back to Terry.
Okay, I guess I'm taking this one now. I'm not going to walk around. Okay, so it evolved from there. Oh no, we lost it. This is the one slide I wanted to work. Oh, there we go. So we evolved it from there. We started small and got them doing hands-on stuff to kind of build some inherent enthusiasm for the course. From there, we got technical, right? So starting with a lot of foundational chemistry concepts and getting everyone up to kind of the same platform. So from there, we could build on more complex concepts. So one of the other activities we conducted in lecture not too long ago is kind of marrying the chemical properties that we were asking them to identify in very specific compounds, understanding on some level, and the background experience is going to vary, right? We've got chemistry graduate students in there, and then we've got my side entomologists and plant pathologists, right? So we're looking at, after 2 lectures of covering what we have deemed to be kind of pertinent chemical properties that are going to really influence what kind of inerts are going to be included in a formulation, we gave them a sample compound, had them identify, spend 10-15 minutes researching it. All right. Tell us everything that you think chemically is important for or relevant for developing or knowing how the formulation comes together. Right. After that, we had them look at a sample label. They actually looked at 2 different labels and contrasted them. And the idea was in this classroom where we've got whiteboards on both sides of the room, we've got your chemistry on one side, and you've got the practical application side on the other. And I was labeled it here, very basic on the left, chemical properties, and on the right, what clues did you find in the label that relate to the structure of that compound and gives you hints as to how it's going to behave? Or what are some things that we need to include in that formulation in order to counteract that, if that is going to have an adverse impact on how we mix it, how we load it, how we store it, or how we apply it. Okay, so just like with the glitter experiment, there was some head scratching, there were some frowns, there was a lot of massaging temples, because this is new for these students, right? Some of them are very comfortable on one side and some of them are very comfortable on the other. Very rarely are they comfortable on both, right? And this is what we're hoping to accomplish with this class, is starting to make those connections. We don't expect everyone that leaves this program to become a formulation chemist. We don't expect everyone that leaves this class to be able to go on site and mix a bunch of compounds together and know inherently what will mix well and what won't. The idea is that we're giving them perspective so that wherever they join in the product, like what areas of the product development process they're going to be active in, they have a concept of where that product has come from and where it is going next. And as Jim mentioned, it helps inform their decision-making process. Ideally, it makes the process more efficient because they have that knowledge of how it all kind of fits together. And so just to kind of end with an overview of where this is going, Jim mentioned we're flying the plane as we build it, and we feel that every week. Every week we're making adjustments. The homework assignments are changing, it feels like daily at this point, because we have to assess where the students are. We've never done this before, nor does a program like this exist that we can find, at least in the United States. There's no textbook to operate from, and so we're just trying to assess the background knowledge and then structure the course accordingly. We anticipate that 2nd and 3rd runs of this course will be a lot smoother, but who knows? But just to give you an outline of kind of where this is going. So I mentioned at the beginning that this is going to be a larger certificate program, either a professional development one or a graduate certificate for our students. Right now, our proposed structure is that it'll be 12 credit hours. That's kind of standard for certificate programs. This will consist of 6 core classes. This introductory course that provides that overview. The idea is bringing kind of everyone up to a level playing field. The second course would be a laboratory course where, we've been doing some things hands-on in the classroom, but we're limited, right, by time and by resources. We want to get the students in the lab actually starting to mix things together. So they don't just know the theory behind things, they can actually visualize it as well, and gives them that practical experience. From there are a number of different electives that they could take. The elective courses would be the other 6 credit hours of that 12 credit hour requirement. And the students would be open to taking whatever they think would be pertinent for their future career. And so how we imagine this, and we just kind of kept it very general for this presentation, but there are a number of courses across not just departments, but colleges that we can advise students to take based on what they want to do when they graduate. Professional students can take whatever interests them or whatever would help them with their current careers. The idea timeline wise is that the introductory course is offered in the fall. You take that first. The laboratory course would be in the spring, so you take the one and then the second. We're hoping to have that laboratory course ready to go by spring of 2027. Gives us time. Lab courses are harder to put together than lecture courses in terms of logistics, so we need a little bit more time for that. At that point, we will have completed our second iteration of the introductory course, so we should be, feeling pretty good about what we've put together. And then the entire certificate should be in place by the spring of 2028. So this has come together very quickly. That initial brainstorming meeting happened fall of last year. Jim and I came on board. I came on board in the spring. Jim came on board in the summer. So this has happened quickly, but we're using that momentum to kind of carry the certificate program forward. So far, we've gotten very positive feedback from both industry and students. Students see a need for this. They want to be able to mention specifics in their interviews. And so we're going to continue on with that, build, modify as needed, and hopefully fill a niche that we think exists. And so with that, I'll leave it there. And I know we've gone into reception time just a little bit. Do we want to do questions, or do we just want to keep it informal?
Any one dying question?
Dying need.
How many students do you have in your first course?
First course has 16 students. Yep, almost all graduate students. They tend to be more risk takers. No, they're actually not. They're not. They don't want their grades in jeopardy ever, but they see the need. Yeah.
Harry, on the very first slide, didn't you make a little more space so we can add a new farm logo?
Oh, okay. Can do. We are always looking for,
We'll take checks anytime.
and also guest lectures. So we are full for this semester, but we have been bringing in guest lectures. I think there's 5 or 6 total lectures where we have people coming in and lecturing on very specific topics. We will be really kind of soliciting for that heavily. So far, we've had 3 and they've been excellent. And the students love the guest lectures because it gives them very tangible, real world case studies to kind of apply these abstract, in their mind, abstract concepts to.
Well, thank you both so much.
That's all.
Awesome.
Well, thank you again so much to all of our speakers. From here, I invite all of you to head on up to our lobby, just upstairs right here, for some drinks and snacks and for mixing and mingling. Thank you again so much for coming today.